And welcome to the 20th episode of Hurricane Hall and Sweatin Money. We may or may not have ownership or other positions in the stocks mentioned in the show. Don't buy stocks based solely off what you hear from this podcast, and always do your own homework and research before investing in stocks. Before I introduce myself, I just want to apologize to our listeners out there because we didn't do last week's episode, and there were some issues with the internet. But anyways, let's move on. I'm your host, Kong, along with my co-host, Gibson.
Great to be here.
How did it look? Why?
Wait,
Okay. Yeah. How did it look on your end? Was it smooth or not smooth?
it's alright.
Okay. So, like, compared to the previous times, did it actually like finish? Like, did you see it from beginning to end, or was it still kind of just pixelated and kind of choppy?
I think I saw it from beginning to end,
Oh,
but like
okay.
slightly choppy, but look okay.
Well, compared to the other times, at least it didn't like cut you off too soon, right?
Huh, I don't know.
Really? Oh, dang it.
I think it was on the disclaimer screen when we did the announcement thing.
Oh,
But I
what,
think
so
we're
like
live right
when I
now.
announce your name and announce my name too?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I think it was just on the disclaimer screen when I looked at it.
Man. Okay, well, we'll figure that
I'll
out
pay more
later.
attention next time, I think. Truth
uh,
be told, my eyes were fixated on one of my other monitors at the point in time.
okay, well, in any case, let's look at what's in the news. Um, Shoot, that's not good. uh,
Dampens it.
yeah, hold on. Oh, geez, now you're gonna look at my desktop screen.
So scenic, man.
I know, isn't it?
Just reminds me of how cold it is outside and how much I don't want to be in those mountains. Just kidding. I'm thinking when I see this picture, I'm like, man, I want to go snowboarding. And at the same time, I remember how cold it is outside. I'm like, nah, I'm okay. I better stay warm within these cozy four walls.
Oh man. Okay. Well, let me see here. No. Oh, jeez, really? Ah, there we go. Somewhat. No. Dang
It's
it.
dark. It's dark, Kong. I can't see anything. It's getting
Yeah.
cold. So cold.
Prepare to die, Gibson. Prepare to die. Okay. So, sorry. Anyways, trying out new systems, so we're gonna have a few issues here. Anyways, Friday, January 8th. Oh, come on, really? Oh, jeez. So, anyways, Friday, January 8th, the jobs report was out, and 292,000 jobs were created in December. Unemployment remained the same, floating around 5%, but hourly wages didn't really go anywhere with these wage rates. It's also unlikely the Feds will also raise rates as well, or as much as was earlier expected.
So they're not going to go through the rate hike that they initiated or mentioned in
Well,
December.
because no, the rate hike already went through in December, but
Mm.
then they were expecting more rate hikes, like more gradual rate hikes to be
Ah,
slower, you know? So like rather than having a few big ones, that might kind of send the economy, going, or send stocks at least going down.
mhm.
Um, they were planning on doing a lot more smaller
Makes
rate
sense.
hikes. So like maybe another point 0.1 or point 0.2 in a couple months or whatever. But things seem a little bit fragile still. So there's going to be less of those smaller rate hikes.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
Seems very extremely, extremely cautious of them.
yeah. Back in July, we saw a major drop in stocks thanks to China's stock performance. It virtually melted down all the way. Fears of China's stock performance led to worries in its financial markets, the entire financial system, and ultimately its economy. What stopped was government pressure for big stakeholders to hold onto their shares to stabilize the markets, which did just that. The thing is, this was only for 6 months, and the 6-month moratorium was up at the beginning of last Monday. Thus, big stakeholders sold what they could because they knew they'd lose more.
Bastards.
Yeah.
Should have shorted that market.
Yeah, seriously. Well, you can still do it now.
I know, I'm too scared.
Yeah,
What if they're
seriously.
done selling? Then I'm screwed.
Well, we'll get into that in a bit. But in response, when the Chinese markets reopened Friday, Thursday evening in the U.S., they fixed the rate of the RMB higher than the markets had expected. Is the animation not showing? Okay, fine. Here, let me just show the animation. Here's how. There we got a chart. Yay! That's the chart I
Yay,
wanted to show you.
chart.
So that was that. Back to
Awesome.
okay.
Screen of blackness. So dark. So cold.
Sorry.
China talks swings in volatile trade.
Yeah, pretty much.
Circuit breaker scraped. Scrapped.
What? Oh, jeez.
More mountains.
More mountains indeed. Yeah, so ever since the Monday sell-offs, the stock trade breaker was set several times to prevent massive sell-offs. Unlike the U.S., where you rarely see such events, this this breaker was set. I think it went off like 7 times last week, and several times in a day actually. So like you know how in the U.S. if something goes badly wrong, it's like okay, we'll stop all markets. So ever since July, China finally implemented something similar. So well, in response to what happened in July, they implemented it this go around. And when they did that, it was like they stopped and then they started again and it fell a lot more and then they stopped again. So in the US, it's like, they stop at once, they do their investigations, and then they're like, okay, hey, things are good. You can continue trading, right? But like China was like, stop, okay, go, stop and go. So
Screwing with the stocks, man.
yeah, they're
Creates a
just making
fire
things
sale
worse.
like buy and sell as fast as you can. Everything's not working anymore. Sell.
Pretty much.
Good time to buy, kind of ish. You're just not quite sure where that bottom is, but I think it might be some investors definitely look at this time period as an opportunity to get things on the cheap.
Yeah.
Perhaps that stock you always wanted to own, you're like, yay, finally cheaper than it was
I
before.
would not be owning any Chinese stock, though, that's for sure.
Oh, definitely not. But I mean, the impact, it's global now. Any type of trading, anything negative happening in Europe, China, Russia, and so on is definitely going to impact United States stocks on a downward movement now, thanks to the interconnectivity of the world.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now then, after this happened, Asian stocks for some reason rallied. Is this possibly due to renewed restrictions on selling set by the communist government? We have yet to find out.
Don't know. I read an article today where they said the same reasons why the stocks tanked, or the same reasons why the stocks are rising. Well, that's just a load of crap article. We don't. Why don't we just come out and say you don't have any idea what's going on,
Yeah, we really don't. We really don't. But in any
right?
case, treasuries were slightly up last week on Tuesday, while the stock market had a nice rally. When the stock market tanked for those days, it was only still doing pretty good for a bit.
Very briefly.
Yeah. So are we headed for a depression? According to this CNN video on this website here, they say that we aren't headed there yet. But as we learned from Dave Chappelle's skit, you better diversify your bonds.
I don't think I've seen that skit.
What?
I would have
No,
to see it.
you
Yeah,
gotta be kidding me.
I know, I know.
Oh my gosh. Come on, man. Wu-Tang Clan ain't nothing to fuck with. Really? You don't know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, yeah, now I remember. Yeah, and I
Okay.
remember. Yeah, I still have to rewatch it though. It's been so long.
It has been a while. Okay, on Monday sell-off, Bloomberg took a look at the five richest people to see how they fared in that single day. Jeff Bezos lost 3.7 billion. Head of the Zara clothing line, Amancio Ortega, lost 2.5 billion. Warren Buffett lost 870 million. Carlos Slim, known as Mexico's Warren Buffett, lost 868 million, so slightly less than Warren Buffett himself. Bill Gates lost 739 million, and the top gainer for that day was Carl Icahn, who made 210 million.
And how did he make money?
Well, of course,
Hmm,
options.
interesting.
Yeah. Now, on the economics of things, a business puts money into R&D to make new breakthroughs and come out with better products for the future. As such, the standard is that more money, uh, the more money a company puts into R&D, the better they'll stand in the future. The same goes for government as well, and a well-known arm of the government's R&D is NASA. Its technology has slowly seeped into our lives at some point. NASA, however, has fallen on some bad times, and in the midst of conservative calls to save money, more and more space programs are getting or soon being privatized, especially with programs like Elon Musk's SpaceX and Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin. Now, in order for us to reach Mars, people are saying NASA may need to hitch a ride with privatized companies to get there. What will this mean for innovation in the future, and how would it affect the economy of the world? Any thoughts?
None really. I'm just thinking, isn't it, I kind of thought that the United States are partnering with Russia, where NASA's like Earth to space launches are going to take place with Russian like um crap. What the hell?
Go
What do you
ahead.
call
Just
the
don't mind
vehicle?
what's on the screen. Just
The
just keep going.
rockets. The
Keep
rockets
talking.
ascend into space.
Yeah.
The space shuttles. They're gonna just piggyback off those into space. Yeah, I don't know about privatization because Elon Musk. I think NASA has proven that their ability to send stuff into space. I believe like most other organizations have failed. They tried and they failed. Especially Elon Musk's SpaceX program. I believe that they tried and they also had their shuttle blow up midair. Something like that.
Actually, no. Like I mean, yeah. If you're talking about the earlier attempts, yeah, they some of them did blow up. But recently, there was one rocket from SpaceX that actually made it. And it made it like the re-entry back down to Earth actually it was actually successful.
What's the point of privatizing all these? Does
Um,
it save money somehow?
yeah, because the government is saying that we don't want to pay that much money for any of this stuff anymore. So like since all these millionaires are coming up with ways to start flying into space, we should start doing this.
I guess
That's
so.
literally what they're saying.
I don't know. I guess it seems kind of weird. It's kind of like, like you release something out to the public, and if there's enough firms out there, it becomes extremely competitive, and then you get market pricing, and then they compete and they drive the wages lower to compete for the contract, and eventually you get a super low rate that the government couldn't have obtained when it was like when it's just a single company providing it, which is the government itself. But then with space shuttles, I can't imagine there being too many competitors either. You have to have like a retarded amount of money to start it, no? I mean, each time you send a rocket up into space and you fail, that's millions of dollars going up, burning up there. I don't imagine there's many corporations with millions of dollars to burn.
Well, that's the thing though, is that a lot of these guys that are coming into this. they are, they're millionaires like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, or at least people who can somehow muster up all that amount of money. Now the thing is the government is being cheap and they don't want to put into any more money into this. And a lot of conservatives are saying, well, really, what does this do for us? Like every Republican you ever heard, they're always like, well, NASA, they're just funnel to money losing programs, blah, 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 blah. But really,
Mm-hmm.
they don't really see the impact that NASA has. Programs like NASA have, actually. One of the other Republican things against NASA is that, let's say, whatever research NASA does, um, whatever research NASA has, for some reason, uh, like they bring it out to the world, but then corporations will get their hands on it, and then for us to get most of that info, we still have to pay these companies. But what these people don't understand also is that when you're buying this info, you're buying a finished product from a company. If the government puts it out, and they do put it out, it's just that no one really sees it because to most of us, it's a bunch of gobbledygook. No one understands science.
Don't know. Don't know what that
So
is. It
to bring
sounds
it back
cool.
to a more practical issue, let's look at
Sounds like
privatization.
a new religion.
I mean, since we're talking about privatization of spaceflight, the eventual privatization, let's also look back at the privatization of energy in California. I don't know the specifics, but all I can say is ever since privatization happened in California, then you immediately had things like energy blackouts, um, energy rates that were supposed to have lowered never got lowered. The infrastructure is aging; it never got improved. Now, uh, private owners from different states all have control over different sectors of California's energy grid, pretty much. So in that case, privatization didn't exactly work out, at least for
Are you
California.
telling me, Kong, that trickle-down economics, where the rich get tax cuts, doesn't work?
You mean where they piss all over us? No.
What about, basically separating the once regulated business and then divvied up amongst a handful of people who each have their own territory and basically geological monopolies in that territory? That doesn't, result in profit minimization, therefore giving back the most to society.
I can only say yes in some cases, but not all. I'll say that. But
I
that's
would
a
say that
debate
in,
for
in,
another day.
in this case, if like LADWP and all these energy companies can compete with one another, then we might have a chance at seeing the cost go driven down. But LADWP, there's no other substitute for LADWP, and they're not really fighting each other to provide electricity to the same people. And then power grids. I think part of it might just be the challenge of sending, like, it's not like they could just give their own route of electricity to everyone.
Yeah.
It's
Now,
not kind of, yeah.
for if we do have any listeners out there, well, I mean, as rare as they might be, LADWP is the local Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. So they are government run by the municipal government of Los Angeles, as opposed to, say, if you go into like areas outside of LA City itself, like even in the rest of LA County, you'll have privatized companies running the energy grids. So for most Southern Edison, and then up in the Bay Area, it's going to be someone like PG&E. So but go on.
Oh yeah, I'm just saying, how am I supposed to buy from another company? Are they gonna just send electricity to me through another route? Like, I'm pretty sure they're all coming from the same route, so I
Well, they're
guess
all coming from the
only.
same route, yes, but in certain areas, it's in certain areas for cable companies, for instance, you even though the line was set down by a certain company, other companies can come in and provide their own separate line of service. Although, like, because they're using someone else's lines, they would be put at a different tier. So if anything were to cut out, these guys would get cut out first. It's no different than your MVNOs. your MVNOs for cell phones. I can't remember what MVNO stands for. It's like multi-vendor something.
Don't know.
Basically, like Metro PCS is now an MVNO of T-Mobile, or how Virgin Mobile is an MVNO of Sprint. They're both using someone else's lines, a bigger company. So but um, they're still providing a separate type of service.
Interesting.
Yeah. So can it be done with energy? Um, yes, it can. But the way the deals are made between companies and local governments, no, it can't. They virtually have monopolies in these areas. So, like, say if you and I somehow gain millions of dollars and we said, you know what, electricity here is too expensive. We're going to come in and we're going to shake things up in this little city or something. It's not going to work like that because A, we don't have the connections. Um, well, that's pretty much that. We don't have the
Huh.
connection, so we can't.
That ends
We
that
can't come
discussion.
in. Yeah. Anyways,
There you go. Privatization. Will it work?
privatization.
Would it
Yeah.
not? Maybe. Maybe yes. Maybe no.
In any case, oh come on, there we go. So let's say you were right there enjoying your time in Las Vegas. No, not. Are you going to the next slide?
Vegas.
But yeah, let's say you were enjoying your time in Vegas because the Consumer Electronics Show is showing up, and you see an electric one-wheeled board. Kind of looks nice, and you want to ask the salespeople who can't speak English, and they try to explain things in the best way possible about what this board does. Then all of a sudden, the U.S. federal marshals come in, take down signs and the products, leaving everyone dumbfounded. How's
That
that for a nice scenario?
I would buy that board almost instantaneously. I'm like, what is that? I must have it.
Well, that actually happened at CES. So there you
Give
go.
me that
So
board. I want.
it turns out the company's booth was Hangzhou First International, and they apparently violated patents from Kyle Dorkson, the designer of the Future Motion one-wheel skateboard.
What?
Yeah. So
Interesting.
because CES and I think it was the FBI also received complaints about this company violating this guy's patents for his one-wheel skateboard design, that they decided to take down everything in this booth.
I see. What does that have to
Yeah,
do with a motherboard?
because the product is the skateboard, one-wheeled skateboard hoverboard thing.
Ah, I see. I don't know. I wonder if I wonder if that's quite patentable. Technically, it's kind of like a unicycle. Well, I guess not. I'm not sure if it's patentable because would a person naturally arrive at the same conclusion that maybe it's possible to have a single wheel? It's kind of like a gyroscope.
Um, so in that case, I think patents are about. Hold on. Because patents are about the design as opposed to copyrights, which are about the names. No, that's more the trademark of the names. Copyright is the design, and then patents are, I think, what they do and how they function, if I'm not mistaken. So it's both the copyright issue as well. I think I could be wrong.
I think it has to be a patent, like on it, and it's basically maybe somehow one of the things about a patent is that you have to release like the methodology of replication and how to identify your product as being unique. So like what's interesting is that if you're curious about the Google PageRank algorithm, which they have patented, that is also available online. Of course, they that's their initial research paper, and since then they probably changed their algorithm a lot. But the original one's still available on the internet. Give you an idea how the PageRank system originally worked.
Yeah, I think that's how some of its upcoming competitors have been coming up. I think like was it the Russian equivalent to Google Yandex or whatever? I think they were using Google's old code or whatever.
Yeah, but a search engine isn't anything too challenging. It's just a reverse dictionary.
Right. Well, I
Well,
mean,
it's a
this is just
shame.
another
This however
example.
seems very interesting.
Well, this is just another example of how China is always coming up with issues when it comes to copyrights and patent protections and trademarks and other such issues. And it's another example of how, well, in this case, how copyright is so strong in the U.S. That I mean, it's another debate for another day as to whether or not the copyright laws we have actually stifle innovation. Um, but I mean, as compared to China, on the other hand, which has a different copywriting system, it just two systems come together and they conflict on the international markets. So we'll see how this goes. Last week, Wednesday, January 6th, Oklahoma reported 22 earthquakes, and the most likely culprit is fracking. In the search for alternative fuels, fracking was supposed to wean, which meant we had to drill holes in the Earth's crust to get these gases coming. Sadly, in fracking neighborhoods, many complaints have come about regarding fracking gases seeping into the air without much control, and in some areas, the water supplies and into rivers, changing local ecology. Now it's also causing earthquakes, apparently.
Makes sense. Because basically, it's kind of like lubricating the earth, right? So it's allowing the release of tectonic pressure, I guess. I wonder if that's ultimately a good thing,
Um,
possibly. Because, like earthquakes, I don't, a series of minor earthquakes is probably better than one major earthquake. And what an earthquake is, and anyone in seismology can feel free to correct me, but it's essentially tectonic plates rubbing against each other and slowly building up pressure, kind of like two surfaces just rubbing hard against each other. If you put two hands against each other and press hard and try to just rub it until they basically slide against each other and just
oh
until
yeah.
yeah until the friction gives way and then basically eventually the two hands slide away from each other. That force release is what an earthquake is, and the more tension, the more power you build behind it, the greater the quake. So that's the difference between 4.0 and like a 6.0 or 8.0 earthquake. And in a way, maybe like a lot of minor earthquakes is not as bad of a deal. Like a
That's
lot of
one way of looking at it,
California,
but I mean, I think the fear that everyone has now is that a place like Oklahoma, which has never really experienced earthquakes, this is actually concerning, especially 22 earthquakes of this sort of magnitude. It's kind of
what's the magnitude?
the highest was 4.7, 4.8, but then in 2009 they've had some for about like 1.5, 2.5. So they're actually getting worse.
The magnitude?
Yeah.
No, 1.5 is low. It's actually getting way better.
No, that was back in
Oh,
2009.
I see.
This
1.5
recent one was
magnitude.
4.7, 4.8.
I see. I
Yeah,
don't
so
know. I mean, are in Los Angeles, if you have a 4.0 earthquake, you don't even know. You can't even feel it.
well, yeah,
And
that's
most of
for
the buildings are
me
designed
and you and
for.
all. I mean, like we experienced that whole thing what back in '94. I mean, I remember at the time they were reporting it as like 6.7, but then later on, I think they redid calculations. It was actually more like what 7.8 or something like that.
Yeah,
But in any case,
our
um,
buildings are designed to withstand a certain threshold of shake.
yeah, it was
Uh,
because of Los Angeles afterwards that they updated a lot of the building codes and all that.
yeah.
But no, but like the problem is that Oklahoma is not in the Ring of Fire like we are. So for those who aren't aware, the Ring of Fire. Oh, come on, hold on.
Lava! As a hint,
Where are we? No, not the
it's so
song.
hot, it's lava.
Okay, so for those who don't know, this is the Pacific Ring of Fire. Basically, all the continents touching the Pacific Ocean is part of the Ring of Fire, and that's where a lot of the tectonic plates just like mesh together and all that. But um, so you get a lot of earthquake activities. But if you're looking at the world as a whole, these are where the tectonic plates kind of move. So for Oklahoma, because it should all be on one North American plate, they shouldn't be experiencing these sort of earthquakes like they are. So the issue that everyone's afraid of is because a place like Oklahoma should not be experiencing. I mean, even if it does have earthquakes occasionally here and there, they shouldn't be experiencing them as much and with such frequency, and especially since they're getting worse and worse. This is very concerning.
I'm more concerned about the water supply being contaminated and the ecological change.
Well, yeah,
That's
yeah, there's that
that's the
too. Yes.
California to me, where I'm like, it's just a couple of earthquakes. What's the big deal? But yeah. For me, it's more about the water contamination, and I understand the benefits of fracking, also the environmental issues that can be caused by it.
Is this a map? I don't think so. Tight gas place. Oh, okay. No, no, no. It's just where estimates of where the gas is. Trying to look up a map of like all the fracking. No, I guess I can't find it. Oop. Oh well, I tried.
Good effort, Kong. Good effort.
Yeah. Anyways, Venezuela voted in a conservative opposition party to counter the left-wing government policies. The new members of their legislature were voted in on Tuesday, and one of the first moves they wanted to do was counter those policies, and that was to reprivatize their country's oil industry. Back to that whole privatization thing we were talking about earlier, completely reversing the reason the previous administrations had used to nationalize these industries.
I would like to privatize air. Can we start selling air now? That'd be great.
That would be great, wouldn't it? Well,
Sure.
in China, because the air quality is so bad, like people like they just walk into restaurants to sit down to have a breath of fresh air. So restaurants are now starting to charge people for just going into their restaurants.
That is horrible. Although it does say something about environmental businesses out over in China, though.
Yeah,
I would definitely. I mean, in China, in LA, moving away from the city and into the mountains might actually be a bad thing.
right.
The space in the city so so expensive. But I imagine now the city in China is literally the last place you want to be. You want to be out in the mountains. Perhaps the mountain people who own a lot of land in the rural areas might see a giant increase in their property value
Well,
thanks
I
to the
mean, yeah,
horrible
if you're
pollution
rich, you want to be up in the
factories.
mountains where the air is clean. But if you're one of the rural minorities that actually live in the mountains and there's no way you can actually make a living, you're going to be wanting to go into the city and getting yourself a stupid factory job, working 12 plus hours a day, on someone's iPhone or whatever.
Yeah, I think it also depends on the geographical properties of the mountain as well to determine whether or not it's actually cleaner air or worse air.
Yeah, that
Because
too.
sometimes the mountain just acts as a barrier to capture all the pollution instead of,
Right.
free yourself of it.
Yeah.
Yep. In China's case, it should be okay because of the trade winds and how it flows. Like California's polluted air kind of comes from China. So, yeah.
Not all of it.
Oh, I don't
You,
know.
you
There's
get
another
quite a
video
bit
you
here in
can look
LA.
at regarding the global impact of China's pollution.
Well, yeah, I mean, I mean, it's not as bad as say if we lived in South Korea, where like because of the deforestation, it's uprooted a lot of trees that used to be where they were, and there's a major issue with desertification. So then a
Oh,
lot
that's
of
horrible.
they actually call it the Wangsakwai in Korea, like
Yeah.
Hwangsake, which is like the yellow sand season, where sand from the Gobi Desert and all that just basically just blows all over Asia.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. Anyways,
Privatization
more
oil.
more economic issues, with the environment. But anyways, Volkswagen, which was caught cheating on emissions a couple months back, and then slapped with a fine. Um, Now they're getting ready to buy back their dirty diesel cars. So when did the EPA lower the fines to the company that they can now have enough money to buy the stuff back? Because I remember, like the fines that everyone was talking about, they were like, "Oh man, it's gonna put VW out of business." All this stuff, like Germany had to actually get involved and talk, like get into diplomatic talks with the U.S. Apparently, like I mean, uh, but now I guess they still have enough money to buy the stuff back. So I don't know. Has the fine changed or what?
I don't know. Although I would imagine because of all these buybacks, the share price can't be that positive, can't be moving in a positive direction.
Yo, no, no, definitely a stock to short.
Exactly. Throw it on my shorting list.
Yeah, well,
Although it's not a public, I don't think it's a they have representation company. They just have a holding company here. VW.
let's see. No, they did have a presence, but I think like most of the other German companies, they went OTC, over counter market.
Ah,
Yeah, because like that way, um, like they can still be traded by investors in the U.S., but then they wouldn't necessarily have to be governed by all the rules and regulations that the U.S. has.
yeah. The rules and regulations what I appreciate about trading in the United States.
Yeah,
Yes.
well,
More,
I mean,
more transparency. I'm
it
looking at
definitely doesn't work
the,
with VW, but like I can tell you right now, for Siemens, uh,
yeah.
yeah, they're actually doing pretty good especially after they took their stuff over the counter.
Well, let's say this. I'm looking at VW's like VW's like stocks, and then I noticed that there's 0% institutional ownership. I imagine, if an institutional goes in, they kind of want you to adhere to the same regulations that everyone on the NYSE has to like adhere to.
Yeah,
So it's a VLKAY. I just find it very interesting. Although their stocks are climbing up, they experience some dips, but who knows? At least this week is experiencing a slight climb. Overall, though, massive decline.
yeah. Oh well, I don't know any stacking
Don't
them,
want to
so
look. Don't
haha.
want to look. Ah, hurts.
Well, that was last week, so so it's not as bad. We'll get into what happened today or later, but last week, this is how much the three indices dropped on Friday, and in terms of its weekly performance, that's how it looked.
So bad.
Altogether, the Dow dropped 1,000 points last week. All indices dropped around 7%. It's the third time in history that the Dow has lost 1,000 points or more in a week. Last time this happened was in 2011, and this is the worst opening week of any year in 84 years.
What bad timing.
Yeah. So let's look at today's performance. Now, the good news is markets were up slightly. Uh, Dow Jones was up 52 points. S&P 500 was up 1.6. Nasdaq was down 5.5 points, a little over 5.5 points. This also means that thus far the Nasdaq is the only index that hasn't risen in a single day thus far this year.
The Nasdaq?
Yeah.
Interesting. You know, it's a lot easier to get into Nasdaq than you can get into NYSE. The
Oh yeah.
requirements are a lot looser.
Yeah. But like Nasdaq is pretty heavy in tech stocks. That's another thing.
Yeah, because it's a lot easier and a lot less capital required.
Yeah. Well, so like we said, stock prices were up now despite the fact that China's major indexes fell 5% and oil went back tumbling down. I noticed recently, at least in the California area, oil kind of went back down after that weird raise that they had all of a sudden. So, yay for us consumers, but now they're saying oil might go be like slightly below $20, like $18 a barrel. But
That is madness.
yeah, I mean, it's funny because then like a couple months ago, people were like, "What? You're predicting $20 a barrel? That's
You're
ridiculous!" And now people are like,
crazy.
It just might go there." So
Yep, who knows? Nothing
yeah,
makes any sense anymore. Although I think there's a recent publication about how Obama reduced domestic demand for oil by 50%. So that might have something to do with it. Damn Obama, saving us on gas prices.
darn. Well, I mean, what measure is this? Because I know a couple of years ago there was like new emission standards, and like I think there it was put in law like every 5 years or so the emission standards has to be raised by like every so often or something like that.
Yeah,
So what's with this new thing you're talking about? Like what's the new like what's the new like order or whatever that he's put out?
it's just been all the things, all the initiatives that he's introduced has led to the reduced consumption of oil nationally.
But
And
what
I think that it
specifically?
could I had to look it up. It was a recent article released, but
Oh, come
basically it's
on.
the boon of reduced oil consumption. But I believe I'm gonna try to boil it down to a single sentence I could throw into this cast here. I'm gonna read about that right now. But it's definitely not. Definitely, the United States have reduced consumption of oil, though. Let's see here. Let's see. Something, something, something. President is pushing for Congress to increase our investments in transportation infrastructure, transit investments, reduce emissions from power plants, cut methane emissions from oil, gas sectors, phase down hydrofluorocarbons, uh, improving fuel efficiency in cars, trucks, other vehicles. I mean, perhaps this is just all these initiatives finally coming to fruition, and it's manifesting itself in reduced oil consumption, which has forced OPEC's hand in just pumping way more oil to basically secure its foothold. I mean, perhaps these initiatives have always had the impact of reducing demand for oil, but then everyone just artificially restricted supply to kind of keep the prices afloat or keep the prices up. And now, basically, all these companies that are have agreed to reduce supply basically felt the burn, and now they're like, you know what, we're just no longer going to play this game anymore, and everyone's just watch out for themselves. So tragedy of the commons, which is basically forcing all these nations or all these sources and firms to compete amongst each other, driving the prices down and the supply up. So I mean, it could be contribute to this, and I think it's very common for such things to occur in just like economic models where companies used to collude, but they benefit more from the system if they didn't collude, at least for a short period of time, and then it leads to everyone stopping ceasing their cooperation and restricting supply, and then suddenly bam, the entire market's overflooded with supply. But I think in OPEC's case, sure, they might be selling oil to us for like a much lower prices, but they always been able to sell it to us at a lower price profitably anyways. What is going to really happen is they're going to use it to choke out every other supplier on the market. And eventually, once everyone's choked out, then maybe they're going to increase supply. But then the question is, we're as a nation, part of our progress and part of what we want to do for the environment was to shift, have a technological shift to shift us away from oil, like move away from like gasoline cars and into like electric cars and whatnot. And I think part of this by OPEC and all these other oil supplying nations or corporations is to basically derail that movement. Because once we have that technological shift, this change in demand will be completely permanent. So,
The problem is that with Obama's policies, he tried to use taxes as a leverage, taxes and other economic, like basically the government was trying to throw money at some of these companies, like some of the solar companies and all that stuff. And while it sounds good in theory, the problem is that politically that is so infeasible. For instance, when Solyndra, one of the major solar panel manufacturing companies, went under, that was a huge mark on his administration. And I mean, I remember I used to be able to just drive up and down the 101. Now I'd see that building every day, and yeah, now it's I mean, it's just an empty giant building.
all right, I think I have a chart for us, maybe.
Oh, a chart.
I'm trying to find one.
So in the meantime,
Uh,
I'm going to go on and BS about this stuff. So yeah, but the other thing is that another criticism that Obama had, aside from throwing money at a lot of, well, I would say what are a lot of good initiatives, is that he in general does not have uh, an actual policy to actually encourage technological innovations towards this area. There's that, and also then how can you as the government provide a better opportunity for these sorts of inventions to take place? Let's say, for instance, why is it that the QWERTY keyboard is one of the most widely used keyboards at this point, as opposed to, say, something like the
opera.
Dvorak? Because QWERTY,
Birdie?
yeah, yeah, QWERTY doesn't have any sort of restrictions. Like it doesn't have, um, like if you were to tell a company to design something like QWERTY right now, they would copyright it first, then send it out, and then prevent anyone else from using it, which prevents prevents its widespread use.
I see.
Yeah,
So the first link I sent you, very blurry, but
yeah,
yeah. Top line is U.S. consumption, and then U.S.
hmm,
oil production, and then the net imports, right? So
yeah.
we've been experiencing a decrease in our consumption for whatever reason it might be. And now I think they're just feeling the burn, and our U.S. production has gone up. So I think part of what is happening is from our foreign nations, they're just trying to choke out our U.S. production. And then before, didn't make it much sense for us to produce more oil, but when the oil prices went so high, it just made every single type of what once was not profitable is now like fully profitable for the United States to do.
Hey, hey,
Hey,
sensitive to
hey!
Asian women.
Yep.
God,
Please pay
maybe
us.
I would add on this.
Please pay us for this ad. We need money for podcasting equipment.
Yeah. So if chnlove.com is hearing this, you can always sponsor our post.
Seriously, we need
Jeez.
equipment.
Anyways,
So,
anyways.
I mean, there's a lot
So
of initiatives that basically change things. The cash for clunkers one. That's another one of those. I mean, maybe finally has impact. I don't know what's causing it. I just
cash
think
for
that
clunkers, that was another issue, if you remember. Because then, like, it was supposed to encourage people to buy cars that were more fuel efficient. And I mean, compared to your old beater, yeah, it's more fuel efficient. But then, it didn't exactly help American industries, because people went ahead and they traded in their old Ford or whatever, Buick or something like that, and they all bought Toyotas. Uh, and that only started subsiding when Toyota came out with its. They had issues with their airbags, and some of
Hmm.
the Priuses were supposedly like they had mechanical failures and all that stuff, and it was a black mark on that company. And but like unlike Honda in this recent the issue with the airbags
Hmm.
that Honda had, Toyota actually recovered fairly quickly. Honda, I think it's been what 2 years or so at this point, and they're still kind of trying to like trot along with
I know
the
last
airbag
year I
issue.
brought my Honda in to get its airbag fixed and buckle
Good for
and
you.
buckle. Yep. And that's the last thing they fixed. Yeah, I
Oh,
took my car to a mechanic, and he's like, you know what, everything's about to fall apart, and you're gonna die in that vehicle very soon. I'm like, really? But for a low, low price of maybe a $1,000, I can remedy that situation, save you from that dire fate. I
you
almost
probably could have
made.
taken it into the dealer, and they would have just done it for free, maybe.
I don't know. I brought it into the dealer. Dealers didn't say
Oh
anything. That's
yeah.
why I suspect that mechanic. I'm like, dealer didn't warn me about these parts that might lead to death. I imagine you bring
Well,
it to
no,
the dealer, they would
the
inspect the
dealer probably
parts and
wouldn't. I guess I don't know. Like usually, I think you have to check it on the government website, right?
I
No.
don't know. I don't know. But essentially, the mechanic just look at the parts and say, you know what? This is gonna wear out in like 1,000 miles, and this is gonna wear out in the next like 5,000 miles. You should get all these things fixed. I'm like, oh, okay.
Hmm.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't believe in basically going. I always believe in second opinion. I think, especially when it comes to shopping, you never know if you're getting the better deal. You only go to one shop.
True.
All right, Mobil
Yeah.
Oil.
Well, let's move on to portfolio review.
Oh, I feel scared for you.
Yeah. Walmart was the sole large company to buck Thursday's trend and rose in price, which is interesting, um, considering its exposure to China. Back in July, when Chinese stocks plummeted, it was deemed to be a big loser because of its exposure to the country. So the question is, what's the difference now? How is it that Walmart has come out above everyone else, and I mean, of Thursday of all days? Well, um, there are other U.S. companies that also have exposure in China, and they weren't able to buck the trend, but fell along everyone else, uh, like Thursday and back in July as well. So, what exactly was it that led them to fall 30% last year? One, Walmart had wage hikes, uh, but they expected their workers to be happier and um, so that they can increase the productivity. Plus, this gives them a chance to fire underperforming workers. So that may be part of the reasons why Walmart is rose last week. The other thing is two, they've been investing more in e-commerce. More on that later. Three, a stronger dollar also decreased overseas profits, which is why they fell in July. Uh, Now, one of the most profit-losing sections has been Walmart's Sam's Club, which is a member-based shopping center similar to Costco, whose stocks I also own. So we checked out 3 articles to see how exactly Sam's Club was doing compared to its competitors, Costco and BJ's. To be honest, Costco and BJ's tend to beat out Walmart on price for most items, but Costco and BJ's also have a higher membership fee. Now, it's not just Walmart who's investing in e-commerce, but also Target, Best Buy as well. They're trying to revamp their websites and the underlying databases within. They're improving ways to track your spending habits online and in their stores. This way, they can hope to compete against Amazon. Now, one thing to note is that even though it was the sole darling of the entire U.S. stock market on Thursday, Walmart wasn't immune from Friday's drop and dropped 2.3% compared to the Dow Jones 1% drop on Friday. Anything?
It's it goes back to Warren Buffett. Oh, the Warren Buffett really. I mean, after losing so much money, maybe he has to like be kind of mute about it. But unfortunately, as such a big like shareholder, like you own so much of the market, you really selling your shares is very challenging. And perhaps there's not much incentive to sell the shares. You just basically tank the hit. But only losing $800 million might be not that too bad. But in essence, he always said this one thing is that in a rising tide raises all ships, and in a receding tide, you can see who's not wearing their shorts, which is kind of interesting. I think this is one of the examples that I think the beginning of the year and the end of the last year is a good example of to look at which companies were able to buck the receding tide. And basically, even in this receding market, they were able to have a like the stock price go up or at least have a very resilient price. I think it's a good opportunity to take a look at the indexes and see if every single company index fell or if certain handful of index stocks within the index did not fall. I think this might be a good opportunity to look at that because then those are probably the staples. Those are probably stocks that people will never ever sell despite everything. So I think this is a good opportunity to identify it. And what you said about it, Walmart on Thursday, I was like, oh, that's very interesting. Maybe it's want to be, maybe this Walmart might be one of those companies. But then what happened on Friday? I'm like, I don't know. Like, if it's a company that can consistently buck the trend, why did it fall on Friday too?
Yeah, and the fact that it actually fell more than the Dow Jones average, that was kind of interesting as well. So, I
Yeah.
don't know. I mean, like a lot of people are saying right now that it'll be a while for them to actually uh, for their investments in what they've been doing with upgrading their technology and their web platforms to actually pay out. I think a couple months ago they introduced a similar thing to Amazon, where like if you pay a certain amount every month, then you can get faster shipments or something like that. Um, but overall, I think they still have issues where they need to kind of integrate the online and in-store experience with each other, and they still haven't cracked that yet. But then, of course, it's not just Walmart that has that issue; it's also Target and all the other brick and mortar stores that are trying to compete against Amazon. Now, as far as the technology goes, I think it is interesting the way they're tracking your purchases. What is it?
Yeah,
Target
it's
and
basically collecting data on your spending behavior to try to, optimize its own purchases and inventory levels and negotiations and whatnot.
yeah,
Although I do find that I do find it encouraging that Walmart's doing all these things to innovate. But what's interesting as well is that what if Amazon decides to have a brick and mortar store? Can you imagine the impact?
that's the thing. No, that's the thing. That's what everyone is afraid of. There have been rumors about this for going on for a while. It's a matter of, I think it's a matter of when, really.
Right?
Well, okay. Well, let me backtrack a bit. It's a matter of when, but it's also a matter of how is it going to benefit Amazon? Because part of the reason why Amazon is so successful is that many states are not charging them tax because they're based in Seattle, Washington. So if they start creating more more stores in other states, they are going to get taxed.
Perhaps they could create a separate entity that, like a subsidiary that can get taxed on like a per state level, California.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's probably going to have to be the case. But I mean, then it's going to. They also have the other issue of like, okay, well, part of the reason why most of these stores are also running like um, their costs are so high is because they have to pay rent, right? So then, if Amazon does that, how are they going to change existing warehouses into stores? There's districting issues, so they're probably not going to do that. So then, how are they going to uh, get enough floor space? And they'll probably, I mean, they'll have to do it.
Well, I don't think they're too far from at least. I think a pilot, would be entertainable. They already have Amazon lockers, which is
True.
kind of like a storefront, but not quite. It's like a locker where you pick things up. But to go from a locker to a brick and mortar store wouldn't be too much more of a challenge, I think. I'm pretty sure it has to be in the pipeline somewhere.
I don't know. The locker in our area, it's always filled. Like I can't get anything sent there at all.
Really,
Yeah,
it's horrible.
but
Good thing I have everything sent to my work.
yeah,
Yeah,
we
but
shall
locker seems
see.
to make sense too. That does seem to make sense.
So let's look at investing strategies.
Great.
Yeah. So Warren Buffett, of course, says be brave when others are fearful and be fearful when others are brave. And it's especially, oh, don't jump up to the next one. Why are you jumping to the next slide? Come on.
Oh, come on, computer. Computer, stop. Computer, stop doing that. Don't do that. No, bad computer. Bad.
Bad, bad computer. Anyways, so according to this logic, this might be a time to buy stocks at some very cheap values. However, should you double down along the way and chase it all the way down, or hold back the bottom? I don't know if that came through clearly or not.
No, I think you got cut off a few times.
Okay, so the question was: is should you chase since stocks are going down? Should you chase it down to the bottom and constantly buy as often as you can, or should you wait till it bottoms out?
I would say go with the economic pricing, like economic auction bidding principle, which is to basically buy at what you think is a good price for it. Because there's always buyers who regret afterwards. So to do away with that, just buy at a price you think is good and worthwhile. As long as you understand why you're buying it, that's good. For
See, that's the
example,
problem. Most investors don't, because then you're talking about like doing your homework, looking at the fundamentals, looking at P&E, things like that. And
yep, yep,
most
yep.
people who are doing this are basically like, they don't want to care about that. They just want to put some money in some company and hope it, stays, or hope it'll go back up or something.
I think once the market stabilizes a bit, then maybe. I feel like everyone's fearful. Like he said, when everyone's fearful, they're worried, and then I think everyone's worried about China. This is definitely a point where it's possible that this model applies to, where everyone's freaking out about China, but then at the same time, United States fundamentals haven't really changed, and then in fact we are moving away from recession, and we're moving borderline expansion. So, and then we don't have
As
too
long as
many
China
ties to
doesn't derail
China.
anything.
Well, then, I mean, I think China is just basically changing the yuan so that the labor is cheaper and to modify what's going on with their economy. So, don't know. I mean, there's a lot of very mixed effects. For one thing, the yuan and basically getting more yuan for the or RMB for the US dollar, you that means cheaper labor. That means that the economy is going to stabilize because if they are currently a labor economy, so what they're suffering is a growing pains to shift away from a labor economy into a service economy, as to like that a lot of the mature nations like the United States have gone through. We used to be a labor economy, but we made a shift to a service economy where we provide service, less of a product, less manufacturing, and they're going through that right now, and they're having a lot of pain doing it. So then this can help stabilize their economy and help it stay where it's at. But at the same time, is that I think a lot of the United States companies are waiting for China to start buying our products and stop exporting so many products. So in a way, it's good because then our products remain cheap. In a way, it's bad because then maybe our demand, like our exports, will stay low. So then there's like pros and cons of what's going on. But I think everyone's just freaking out about, oh, China's not doing well, and then they're not gonna have any money to buy anything. So then, oh crap, everything's gonna go, everything's in chaos, which in a globally interconnected like system, I mean, it's possible that that can be bad. But at the same time, there's also the same thing. Like I said at the very beginning of this podcast, is the same reasons why the stocks are going down might be the same reasons why the stocks are going up. So the answer to that, well, like, that doesn't make any sense, Gibson. That makes absolutely no sense. Like, I mean, why? Well, it's simple. In this complete world of chaos where everything's sucking so hard, where's that beacon? Like, where's that city on a hill? Where's that safe haven you're thinking it's going to be? United States. So the same force that driving entire like market down might be the force that driving United States stocks up, because you're like, well, there's no other safe place to put it, so we're going to flood the United States market. So there's a lot of, the stock market is a very, very complicated like space, and some of the people who are thinking that we might have a floor is citing that same forces, such as the ones that are driving the other markets down, like China, the fear, the chaos, might be what's like helping support the United States market right now. And if that's truly the case, then the more the rest of the world degrades, the more the United States stocks will rise. And of course, if it's not the case, then our United States stocks will rise as well, because, well, everyone panicked for no reason. I think a lot of times, Mark Cuban is another investor. He basically likes to buy stocks when there is basically no good reason for the stock price to have like dropped so low. Like there's some basically the difference between a fundamental investor and then people who just invest in general is that he feels that the fundamental are exactly the same and the value dropped for no reason, and now is a good time to buy on a discount.
Yeah,
So
but people
yeah.
people like him also look at the fundamentals. They're looking at the charts. They know what to look for. They know what's overpriced and all that. The average investor does not know when it's going to bottom out. They don't know when to start buying, and that's the thing. Now back to that and the strategies. Now, here's one of the things. So there's two different methods right now that people are talking about that kind of relate to this. So one of the things you're hoping to do by investing right now is to take advantage of dollar cost averaging. This is a way where to make investing automatic. So you have a set amount, and it's like no matter what, if it's up or down, you're going to buy. Um, the risk with that is that when the markets are up, with the same amount of money, you're buying less shares. So while this is a passive way to invest, and it's a good start, um, it's best if you can sell shares while they're at the top. The problem is the moment you do that, it ceases to be fully passive, which means you or a broker will have to monitor the performance of the stocks you buy. Plus, most retirement accounts won't necessarily allow you to buy and sell like that. And if they do, usually your management fees are pretty high. Now, what people are doing is tweaking the dollar cost averaging method with a bit of market timing known as value averaging, where you only buy stocks when they fall. So no matter what, you're actually buying at value prices every time. So when the stock market bubble bursted in 2008, it took a while for analysts to realize how massive the problem was. Now, there was a ton of speculation as to whether or not China's stock market crash can bleed into the U.S. and affect it in the way the U.S.'s housing market crash affected the entire world. So, are we at that point where, you know, like you said, China is China at the point where the economy is about to completely collapse, or is it actually reshaping itself into a consumer-based economy, like you're saying? And it's kind of hard to tell.
Well, service economy, not consumer-based economy.
Yeah, sorry.
Service. Yeah. I mean, I think it's very obvious that they are gradually shifting into it. They're not jumping into it, and I think they're showing the ability for them to ease their transition into a service-based economy. And perhaps China's not ready for it yet. They want to get there, they whatever, but then right now they feel like they at least have the option to just hold that back. Like what was the tool that China used to ensure that they're a labor-based economy for like unknown like decades, amount of time? It's basically fixing their currency, and I see a lot of things are doing the same thing. They're still manipulating their currency to basically stabilize their economy or manipulate their economy. So it's in a way kind of similar to the way United States has monetary policy, but not quite. Um, I guess it's just a way of controlling money supply, but it's different. It's different in the sense that the money supply thing is kind of internal, but then the currency manipulation is kind of external. You're basically, instead of encouraging people to be more active in their activity within the economy domestically, they are causing external forces to in to basically influence the things that are happening internally within the country. That's why a lot of countries might not be too happy with China's doing. Um, which is basically the reason, like basically what's happening is they're causing a trade deficit. There's a lot of export from China, but not a lot of import from China because of everything's so cheap there. There's no reason why. And then the people are wondering when the hell are they going to reverse the trade deficit so that their national deficit can basically go away. So I'm not too worried about China because I see them basically constantly tapping on their brakes over and over again. So, and then, with that, with 1/4 the world's population, I'm pretty sure there's some smart people in there, hopefully. Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully we'll see. All right, so let's move on to recommendations. So my recommendation is Wall Street Week. They're another weekly show that talks about stocks and the economy. Grr, rivals. Except they actually have an operating budget and connections to talk with people in the industry. But whatever. I'm still recommending them because they have some good information and you can use that for yourself as well. So there's that.
Nice.
Yeah. You got any recommendations?
I think, it's going to be a volatile month. I think there's going to be a lot of movement this month. So either A, take advantage of this movement, and I think day trade, just yeah, and or B, just be very active in watching market, or B, just pull out the market altogether. There's no need for you to take the risk. Of course, if you're stuck in a position already, then make sure it's a position that you don't mind being stuck in. For example, there's certain companies that I for sure know that will climb back up. There's no reason why it will ever collapse, at least not in this market. I will hold on to those and think it's fine. But anything else, anything that, yeah, if you just don't have the stomach for it, you're not in the position for it, then this might not be the one for you.
All right. Well, so I think that ends our show for today. So just a reminder, once again, we may or may not have other positions in the stocks mentioned on the show. Don't buy stocks based solely off what you hear from this podcast, and always do your own homework and research before investing in stocks.
All right.